Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now we are moving into one of the most significant areas of computational mathematics, the numerical solution of partial differential equations or PDEs. These equations arise in almost every domain: heat transfer, wave propagation, fluid dynamics, structural analysis, and even in financial modeling. In this video, we are going to cover up the following topics: types of PDEs, their standard forms, numerical solutions, and basic implementation tips in C and C++. To begin with, a partial differential equation is simply an equation that involves partial derivatives of a multivariable function. In other words, the function you are solving for depends on more than one variable, and derivatives are taken with respect to those variables. There are three fundamental types of second-order PDEs: parabolic, hyperbolic, and elliptic. When it comes to standard forms, the parabolic ones are like the heat equation. The parabolic ones are like the wave equations that are related to vibrations. Lastly, the elliptic types of PDEs are like Laplace equation that are used in steady state or equilibrium state. Their common examples are shown in this table. Now let's move first with the parabolic type. The classic example is the heat equation, which models how temperature evolves over time. The heat equation typically looks like this, where U is the temperature, T is time, X is the spatial variable, and alpha is the thermal diffusivity. This type of equation tells us how heat diffuses across a medium. It involves a time derivative and a second-order spatial derivative, making it time-dependent. So we will solve this using finite difference methods, advancing step by step in time. Two key approaches we use here are: first, explicit method, that is straightforward but conditionally stable, and the implicit method, more stable but computationally intensive. In the explicit method, we use forward difference for time and central difference for space. That's where the stability condition, often referred to as the CFL condition, becomes important. If violated, the method becomes unstable and the results start diverging. Moving on to a quick numerical example, where we are given alpha equals 1, h equals 0.1, and k equals 0.005, r equals 0.5. At initial condition, we have ux0 equals sine pi x, and boundary conditions are u0t equals u1t, that both are equal to 0. Next up, the hyperbolic equations, typically modeling wave motion or vibrations. A standard example is the wave equation. This equation describes how waves travel over time, whether it's sound waves, water waves, or vibrations in a string. Here, notice that both time and space have second-order derivatives. That symmetry means we need to calculate future values based on both current and past values, which is quite different from parabolic problems. The most common numerical approach for this is the finite difference method, where we use central differences in both time and space. One key challenge with hyperbolic equations is maintaining numerical stability, especially near boundaries. Choosing the right time step and spatial grid size is critical, or else numerical oscillations can occur which have no physical meaning. Again, quick overview of the example, where we are given certain values only, and we need to assume that ux0 is equals to sine pi x, and partial derivative of u divided by partial derivative of tx0 is equals to 0. And you can compute u using the initial displacement and iterate using the above formula. Finally, we have the elliptic equations, with the Laplace equation being the classic example. This type of PDE typically describes steady-state systems like electrostatic potential, steady heat distribution, or incompressible fluid flow. elliptic PDEs are time independent, which means we are solving for a spatial distribution that doesn't change with time. These problems often turn into a large system of algebraic equations after discretization. The numerical strategy here is usually to use the finite difference approximation and then solve the resulting linear system using methods like Gauss-Seidel iteration, Jacobi method, or successive over-relaxation. An important point, boundary conditions dominate the solution here. So precision in how we define and implement boundaries is everything. Here also a quick example where we have grid size that is h equals 0.25 and a domain of 0,1 cross 0,1. And the boundary conditions are as shown. The first one is equal to 100 and the second one equals 0. Initialize the grid and iterate using the 5-point formula until the convergence and you will get the desired solution. So here's what I want you to remember for these PDEs, that parabolic PDEs simulate diffusion processes and solved step by step in time, whereas hyperbolic PDEs model wave-like behavior requiring information from both past and present. Lastly, the elliptic PDEs represent equilibrium, the steady state, and need careful handling of boundary values. Each one has a different numerical strategy based on its nature. And the core tool, finite differences, is the bridge that connects calculus and computational power. Now a quick unified view on how we discretize PDEs using finite differences. We divide the space and or time domain into a grid, what we call a mesh, and approximate derivatives using difference formulas. First order time derivatives are replaced by forward or backward differences. Second order spatial derivatives are replaced by central differences. So instead of solving a continuous differential equation, we are solving algebraic equations at each point of the mesh. Now that we have built a strong theoretical foundation for solving partial differential equations, numerically, it's time to take it one step further into practical implementation using C and C++. This is where your mathematical logic meets real-world computational power. But before we jump into coding, we need to understand the philosophy behind building a numerical solver, the structure, the logic, and the disciplines. So let's start with the template of any well-structured PDE solver in C++. First, we define our constants, the size of our domain, the time step, the number of spatial grid points, and physical parameters like diffusivity or wave speed. Then we declare the arrays u underscore new, maybe even u underscore past, depending upon the type of PDE, and set initial and boundary conditions. This is the base from where the numerical engine begins to compute. Finally, we construct a time loop where the differential equation is solved using difference approximations. Once the time stepping is done, we export the results, typically to a CSV file for visualization. Let's talk about solving the heat equation, which is parabolic in nature. Now to solve this, we use an explicit finite difference scheme. In that scheme, at every time step, we directly compute the next state based on the current values. In code, we will write it like this. But, and this is critical, we must check the stability condition also. If we don't satisfy this condition, the solution may become unstable and diverge completely. So teach your code to respect physics. Don't just make it run right. Now for the wave equation, this is hyperbolic and includes a second derivative in time. That means we need two past time levels to compute the future state. We use this section of code where r equals c dt by dx. Now here's the trick. We initialize the first two time levels carefully based on the initial displacement and velocity of the waves. Get that wrong and your wave won't propagate correctly. Also, always pay attention to boundary conditions. Whether it's a fixed end, pre-end, or periodic boundaries, these affect the physics significantly. For elliptic equations like the Laplace equation, we are no longer stepping through time. Instead, we are looking for a steady state distribution. This means we build a grid, a matrix, and iterate using methods like Jacobi, Gauss-Seidel, or SOR. In Gauss-Seidel, for example, we use this update. And we continue iterating until the change between two iterations become negligible, often using a small threshold like 1e-6. The accuracy of the boundary conditions is absolutely crucial here. Let me stress this. In computational mathematics, writing clean, modular code is just as important as getting the math right. Use function 1 for initialization, 1 for boundary condition, 1 for solving. Comment your logic. Treat your code like you're teaching someone through it. Avoid hard coding values. Use const or define parameters at the top for clarity. When working in 2D, prefer vectors over raw pointers. It's safer, cleaner, and modern. Once your code has computed the results, you will want to visualize the solution. You can export your data using the standard file IO. From there, use Python's matplotlib, MATLAB, or Excel to generate line plots, heat maps, or circuit plots. A picture always tells a better story. Here's where real learning begins. Encourage experimentation. What happens if the grid is too coarse? What if the time step is too large? What if you reduce your tolerance? Let yourself tweak these and see how errors grow or decay. It's not just about writing a solver, it's about understanding the physics behind convergence and stability. So that's a wrap up for this video. Remember, in computational science, the best code is not just fast, it's accurate, modular, and maintainable. And that's a wrap for this video. And of course, if you found this helpful in any way, give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel to help us grow. And I will see you in the next one. Till then, happy learning.